Hello and welcome to the Topsy Pro Analytics webinar. I'm going to start off by giving you an overview of our company history. I'm talking a little bit about our free search engine Topsy, and then I'm going to talk about some specific use cases as well as what makes us unique and walk you through our platform. So in terms of Topsy, we've been in business about 5 to 6 years, and we started out as a social search engine. So you can think of Google, right? You can type in whatever you want, let's say bicycle into Google, and Google will instantly surface for you all the most relatable websites to the word bicycle, based on your geolocale, etc. We sought out to do the exact same thing that Google did for the regular web, for the social web. So we saw this huge boom of conversations going on the social web, and no real good way to find actionable and interesting insights from them. So we decided to make a platform where you could type in whatever you want, and just like Google, we'll surface the most relevant social conversation. The who, the what, the where, the feeling behind what people are saying in regards to the topics that interest you. We sought out to do that about 5 years ago, and that's where Topsy.com, our free search engine, came from. About 6 months ago, we rolled out Topsy Pro, which is the analytics dashboard that I'm going to show you today. Since that time, we've had quite a few customers take interest in what we do across a variety of verticals. And I'll show you some of those customers here. As we can see, there's a spattering of enterprise technology companies, news organizations, sports teams, PR companies. Why are all these companies that are heavily invested in their own social media monitoring solutions utilizing a product that a 50-person company is pushing out? It's because we do something fundamentally different than any of the solutions out there. What we have done is indexed and made instantly searchable for you the largest social database on the planet. In fact, Twitter is one of our largest customers, and we power a variety of their websites, including election.twitter.com, which was the website that they used for the Twindex, for Obama versus Romney, as well as currently oscars.twitter.com, which you'll see pull up here. And our sentiment analytics are what power this. So there's a variety of use cases across those different industry sectors that I mentioned, but I work in enterprise technology vertical here. So for this presentation, I'm going to focus on a sector that I've had a lot of success in, which is marketing automation. Companies like Constant Contact, Eloqua, MailChimp, Acton Software, ExactTarget all live and work in that space. So very simply, I can type in for the last hour, Eloqua, and this will pull up some content in our dashboard. Very interesting. What's happening on the back end here is that we are processing about 450 million tweets a day in real time. And of those 450 million tweets a day, about 40% of those, meaning about 45 million, link to some sort of website or blog or photo or video. And we index all of that. Now, Twitter is the world's largest public conversation, about 10 times the size of Facebook. And on Twitter, people are not talking about what they liked 6 months ago, like on Facebook, where you like something and you forget about it. They're talking about what's going on, what interests them today. So it's a very engagement-driven conversation. We find that very interesting, and so we've been indexing it since July of 2010, and we're both working retroactively back to the first tweet in 2006, as well as indexing it moving forward in real time. Now, what that allows you to do is type in any hashtag, any key term, any link or handle that you want, and we'll instantly surface the conversation for you, both in real time down to the minute level of granularity, as well as retroactively going back over 2 years and soon back to 2006. So for the term Eloqua, which is a marketing automation company, these are exact counts in the last hour, those tweets, as well as the links that those tweets contain. And we don't see any top media. We could just as simply sort this back to the last year and see exact counts there. We see that there's a huge spike for Eloqua here, and it looks like it was when they got acquired by Oracle a couple months back. As again, we see the top links being shared. We can see that Mashable, TechCrunch, all read up about their acquisition, as well as those articles being linked to here. And these are the top photos and videos that reference Eloqua. But what's interesting is that we could very simply do this for the entire sector. So Eloqua, MailChimp, ExactTarget, Silverpop are all players within the marketing automation sector. And now we can see through this general dashboard in the last year all mentions of them. And again, Eloqua, with that purchase by Oracle recently, got the most engagement. These are, again, the top tweets and the top links that these key terms in this case reference back to. We can do some even more interesting things around competitive analysis here. We see for exact mentions for these brands, we have by far more for MailChimp, followed by Eloqua, followed by ExactTarget, and then considerably less for SilverPop. We're able to peel back this onion and really get an idea of kind of what the conversation's like. Looks like MailChimp is kind of drowning it out. Eloqua is drowning it out. And now we're starting to see some more interesting points for ExactTarget and SilverPop. We can click into any one of these points and get the metrics behind them. So we see that ExactTarget buys Pardot, which is another marketing automation platform, was the top tweet for that time period in terms of significance, meaning how many influential people are sharing it. We can click into this and then see the whole life cycle of this social action. TechCrunch was the original tweeter, and these are all the people who amplified that content. We can also find out in that conversation who's influential. In this case, not really anybody. That's how our activity and dashboard tabs work. And our platform, like I said, is not just keyword specific. You can put in a hashtag, you can put in a link, you can put in a handle and get the who, what, where, and feeling behind any of those things across a very large period of time. One of the things that allows us to do is to do some really deep analysis around markets. So in this case, marketing automation is the conversation that is interesting to these companies. We see from an activity perspective, it's been mentioned about 67,000 times. Now, what I want to know is, when people talk about marketing automation, what else do they want? What else are they talking about? And this is interesting to a lot of roles at these companies like Eloqua and MailChimp and ExactTarget. From a product perspective, what are people saying in terms of marketing automation? From what hashtag should I be running as a community manager? Well, what are people hashtagging in the marketing automation community? And then we can start to do analysis around all these things. So we see for marketing automation that automation software is important. Infusionsoft, which is another player in the space. We see workflows. We see e-consultancy. We see hashtag closed loop social. Marketo, which is another player. And now we can very simply go back, enable all these topics, go to activity, and it'll surface the conversation. And we see again, from a volume perspective, as well as from a peak perspective, what's really going on here. Now, if you take a step back, I just did something fundamentally different than what you can do with most other platforms out there. I typed something in, marketing automation, went to our discovery feature, which I'm going to do again for you here, and learned things retroactively or conversely, here in the last hour, in real time that are relating to the conversation around marketing automation. The social conversation is ever evolving. It's constantly changing, and there's no way for us to predict how people are going to be communicating a minute from now. But through our platform, you're able to, in real time, surface that conversation, make searches about it, and decide if it's something that's significant or actionable for your business or not. And that's something that's really beautiful in terms of Twitter being such a public conversation, and beautiful in terms of us being able to index it. And that's how related terms work, and that's how you can use it to learn from the conversation in real time. Another thing that we do really well is finding influencers for whatever time period interests you. So if I wanted to answer the question, who is influential on Twitter in regards to marketing automation, which mind you is a pretty specific topic, I can simply type in marketing automation, it's isolated here, go to experts, and we'll surface that for you. The way our influence scores work are fairly simple. We give every single author for the time period an influence score, and we put them in a bucket, and we make them fight each other for influence in regards to both the time frame as well as the topic. So in this case, we see that marketing automation was mentioned by @HubSpot, which is a company in the space, 31 times, and of those 31 times, they were retweeted 185 times. An entirely separate notion is this bar of influence here, which states that in the last year, overall, when HubSpot shares content, be it important to marketing automation or not, they are being picked up by other influential people and retweeted. You can almost kind of think of it as a living dynamic pyramid scheme where someone's always taking influence from each other. And it's not about if you have 50,000 followers, it's about amongst those 50,000 followers, who in that constituency is influential on Twitter, and do they share your content, and who is influential in their follower count, and do they share your content? So it's much more of an engagement-based metrics. We want to see what's being shared and and are people taking some sort of direct action on it? Not, how often you can spam Twitter or how many followers you can amass through bots. It's a proprietary algorithm, so it can't be gamed. So the use cases for this are several, but people want to know who's important in marketing automation. So the community managers at Eloqua and ExactTarget and MailChimp can talk to them, see what they're talking about, mine their conversation for product suggestions, but more importantly, talk to them about why what ExactTarget is doing with its hub exchange today is unique and is different from what Marketo is doing or what Eloqua is doing, and get them to be evangelists. You can take an example of a company like GoPro that has 200 sponsored athletes. They're paying a lot of money, and part of these people's job is to make noise on the social web. We could literally import 200 handles here and see the reach of each one of these individual athletes and see how they're impacting the social web. And if, in fact, the money that GoPro is spending on sponsoring these athletes is really making a difference for them on the social web. And that's experts. Hopefully it makes sense to you. From a top results perspective, you can think of top results as simply Google. You type something in and we surface for you what's most engaging from a tweet, link, photo, and video perspective. And engagement, there's a few different ways to look at it. You can think of it as influence. You can think of it as volume of tweets. You can think of it as most recent or furthest back in time. So in this case, for marketing automation, from a tweet perspective in the last year, pop up here in a second, we'll see that this was the top tweet. Acton takes on $16 million in Series D funding to fuel its marketing automation platform. As we saw before, we can click into here and see who all the amplifiers are and the kind of life cycle of this social action. We can also click on this and see who's influential. Now keep in mind, we can start to do analysis around these people as well. So there's multiple ways to learn through our platform. And again, kind of the use case behind this from a brand monitoring perspective, from a public relations perspective, you want to know what's being shared in regards to your brand, your product, your CEO, and your competitor. And we're able to surface that for you very, very quickly through our platform. You don't have to have a whole team to use Topsy Pro. You don't have to have a social media command center. One individual in a very targeted role at competitive intelligence can come in and very simply set up basic topic profiles, which are combinations of these things here, log in every morning, and get a complete picture of the social graph for his role. And it's something that our platform is allowing people to do for the very first time. Another thing that we're really good at is link analysis. So no matter how a link is packaged down, be it bit.ly or Tico, we're completely shortener agnostic. We will unpack that for you and resolve it to its hosting domain. So there's a lot of use cases for this. For example, if you are Eloqua and you are Silverpop and you're doing online marketing for them, and you want to know, in terms of the social web, what websites are being shared in regards to marketing automation, simply we have marketing automation selected here, the last 30 days selected here, and we see that these are the top domains that people are talking about. What's cool about this is, people who are talking about marketing automation are pretty tuned into the community. When they're linking to things, those are probably interesting articles. So those might be great places to retarget or to advertise on, and more importantly, to write blogs for and to reach out to the people who are the community experts there. You could also do really interesting things like if you were the community manager, for example, Eloqua, you can go use a domain like marketingautomationtimes.com. You can scope the entire analysis to that. Excuse me, let me do that again. Marketingautomationtimes.com. And go back here to the last 30 days. And then type in Eloqua. So this answers the question. I want to know every time a tweet is shared that mentions Eloqua, that links back to a community website that I know to be important. For, in this case, marketingautomationtimes.com. So now as a community manager at Eloqua, you realize that this was an important social action that brought you back to a place where your community lives. If you think about it from an e-commerce standpoint, we could just as easily do Amazon.com here, and then the word bot. And this will now pull up every time somebody said, I bought something in a tweet that links back to Amazon.com. And for a company like Amazon who wants to see all this data on the social web and how it relates to their e-commerce platform, this is very powerful functionality. We also do pretty interesting things around photos and videos. So for example, for GoPro, in the last 30 days, what are the top photos and videos being shared? One of the cool things about GoPro is it's not just about their sponsored athletes. It's about people like you and I who surf and snowboard and do action sports, and we're all using these devices to document that. And we're proud of what we do on our boards and our skis, etc. So we put it out on the social web. So from a social perspective at GoPro, how cool is it for them to use our platform to engage with their end users on the ground, at the mountain, etc.? And in the last 30 days, these are the top photos from a volume perspective, tweets, being shared for GoPro. We could do the exact same thing for the last hour. And now as a community manager, you could go to this tweet, hit up this handle and say, hey, thanks for sharing that. We appreciate it. And those little type of things are what make the difference in terms of how people perceive your brand and your company. From a video perspective, we do the exact same thing. No matter where it's stored, we'll pull it up for you. And so here will be videos coming up for GoPro in the last 30 days. And Twitter being a very public, very engaged, very real-time conversation, it's pretty interesting what you can learn from it and how you can take this information and use it to be insightful about the rest of your marketing efforts on Pinterest, on Facebook, on YouTube. You know, if you want to know what kind of engaging content to put on your Facebook page to get people engaged, what better place to do it than finding it on the world's largest conversation, which is Twitter. And that's how top results work. Again, from a high level, it's essentially like Google. You type in what interests you and we'll surface for you in terms of Twitter, what is the most engaging content. Geography is quite simple. We can basically tell you the who, with about 87% accuracy on the city level of where a tweet is coming from. And not the who or the what, but the where, And so we'll see for the last 24 hours, let's, for example, look at all tweets around 49ers since the Super Bowl recently happened. And we see that most of them are coming out of the United States. Even more so are coming out of California. And we see out of California, they're coming out of San Francisco. Now that's pretty cool because as you can see here, I'm not restricting it to that long. What that means is 1% of Twitter users opt in saying you can track where I tweet from on my phone. What we do is we run a huge statistical regression on that 1% and we mine that data for things that are statistically significant. So if people in San Francisco are talking about Candlestick Park, the Niners, the Golden Gate Bridge, Fort Point, the Ferry Building, you know, we're pretty sure that they're located here. And so we take that other 99% that didn't opt in, we look through the entire history of their public conversation, and we look for that kind of signal, amongst other signal, like where did they check in on Foursquare? What language is their profile in? What time of day do they and their followers tend to tweet? And through that, we're able to cover about 40% of cities worldwide with about 87 to 90% accuracy. So literally through our platform, we can tell you in real time or retroactively the who, the what, and the where of a social action. Exposure is pretty interesting too. What this gives you is an impressions number. So if you wanted to do, for example, Marketo, Eloqua, back to the marketing automation example, in the last 30 days, these companies are very similar in size, kind of very similar in market, definitely competitive companies, and we could see kind of who, from an impressions perspective, is really making a difference on the social web. And also not only that, but what are those tipping points and what do they look like? So impressions, the way we calculate this is we take the number of followers and we multiply that by the number of retweets in the time frame for the topic profile. So you can imagine that Eloqua got retweeted, 1 million times, and then we take the follower count of each of those retweets, we add them up, we multiply those two numbers, and we get what we call cumulative exposure. In this case, Marketo has about 9 million potential impressions, meaning he moved across 9 million Twitter profiles in the last 30 days. But what's cool is we can click into these different points and see what made that move. So in this case, Tony Racha, what Oracle's plan to acquire Eloqua means for marketers. Versus here, we have Marketo, and it's something in regards to a webinar. Let's see if I got that right. Or this tweet here. And then we can go back and we saw the exposure metrics for Marketo and Eloqua, and we can actually compare to those exposure metrics to just gross mentions, which Marketo is clearly winning here. But from an exposure perspective, let's see who has more impressions. And again, it's Marketo. And keep in mind, you can do this not just for the companies, but for your product, for your executives, for your website, for whatever it is that interests you on the social web. Lastly, I'm going to show you sentiment. There's two ways to think about sentiment. can do a pretty interesting analysis here that I came across in my work with some NBA teams recently. If we did something like Dallas Mavericks, Miami Heat, we'll see this kind of interesting trend line. Now, this is the base trend line of sentiment on Twitter, meaning this is when people are fine. They're neutral. This is when people are stoked. They're happy, and this is when people are sad or not happy about something. We see for these two teams over the last year, there's a lot of negativity during the season. During the summer, things are, pretty happy. Not a lot of negativity. And then again, a ton of negativity. And I did a comparison for all the NBA teams on this, and this is pretty much true across the board, which really talks about the seasonality of their sector. And you could apply that to eBay and Amazon and how things fare around Christmas time. 1-800-Flowers.com versus its competitors and Valentine's Day. So you can really get a lot of interesting signal around this. The way we do sentiment is we look at 1- and 2-word phrases. We account for Twitter's mood as a whole, meaning we know people aren't as happy on Monday as they are on Friday afternoon. And what we're able to come up with is about a 65% match rate to human judgment. Meaning 65% of the times when we ask or survey a human being if they agree with this tweet being positive or negative, we're right. So really what our key competency is there is not being the most accurate sentiment engine in the world, but for the entire conversation on Twitter, both in real time and retroactively, we can surface engaging metrics around it. And we see here the negative tweet that I just pulled up. And it looks like the word stun in this case is what's making this pull up. And the accuracy of this will, again, change based on the data set. For GoPro, the way surfers tend to talk, it might not work as well. For Obama and Romney, it tends to work really, really well, which is why we powered the Twindex with these analytics. From a filter perspective, you can filter by geolocation, so we can literally see all the tweets coming out of California that mention Obama in the last 30 days that also have a negative undertone or a positive undertone. Or we can see all the tweets coming out of Seoul, South Korea, mentioning Samsung in Korean language in the last 24 hours. And we can also save topic profiles around all this stuff. So if I wanted to do a competitive profile for marketing automation, I could very simply go Eloqua, Marketo, MailChimp, Vertical Response, Pardot, Silverpop. I go here, I hit Save As, competitive profile, marketing automation. And now every morning I can log in and pull up competitive profile for marketing automation. And I can do this for links, for hashtags, for handles, etc. We have enterprise technology companies in the security sector tracking all the hackers of all the handles for Anonymous, for example, and learning about those and what they're communicating about. And when they're launching attacks, etc. So you can think of a variety of use cases. For example, if you knew every person that bought your product in the last few months and you knew their Twitter handles, you could kind of see what sentiment is around them, if they mention your product, and really start to mine that data for insights. You can also set alerts around all this stuff using our alerting functionality. So if you wanted to be notified anytime your brand was mentioned more than 10 times in an hour on Twitter, we'll alert you via email. Or if you're a really busy community manager and all you have time for is just some basic reporting that you need to get to your VP, every couple of days on the social graph, you can set up a report around, your handle, for example, at Spotify, from Spotify, meaning from their handle, just brand mentions of Spotify, and anytime Spotify.com gets shared, and get a report on that every single morning or every week or for whatever time period you want, and you can very simply look at that and get the insights that you need without having to log into the platforms at all. And that's pretty much an overview of how Topsy Pro works and some relevant use cases. Again, we're seeing use cases in public relation firms like Digitas, Wagner, Edstrom, Edelman, which are huge ones for crisis management, for branding, for sentiment analysis. In enterprise technology, we're seeing use cases for product teams, for community managers, for even executive level business intelligence, and for competitive intelligence. And we're seeing, news organizations wanting to know the who, the what, the why, and the where of people on the ground, where stories are breaking. And the use cases continue to trickle in here at Topsy. So we're growing very quickly, and we're seeing a lot of adoption of our tool by companies that are already heavily invested in other tools. And the reason for that is we've indexed the largest instantly searchable database of social actions on the planet. And it's the world's largest marketing research conversation, and we give you an incredibly cost-effective microscope for it. So feel free to hit us up with questions. You can always contact bizdev@topsy.com. And we're happy to take you through demos, show you how to use the tool. It's really simple. People usually get ramped in a day or two. And we offer free trials. Just go to Topsy.com and see a free trial link. 14-day, fully functional trial. We're very proud of what we've accomplished. We would love for you guys to use it. Any questions, feel free to email me directly at yan@topsy.com or bizdev@topsy.com, and we'll be sure to get right back to you. Thank you for your time today, and we look forward to working with you and hopefully earning your business. Thank you and goodbye.